drivers born before a certain date may soon face new requirements to retain their licenses. The government is reportedly considering a move that would require older motorists, particularly those in their 70s, to undergo mandatory checks in order to continue driving legally. It's a change stirring debate between road safety advocates and those defending the independence of elderly drivers. In the UK, once a driver reaches the age of 70, their driving license expires automatically and must be renewed in order to continue driving. The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, DVLA, currently sends reminders and renewal forms to those approaching their 70th birthday, and again at each further renewal period. If a license isn't renewed, driving becomes illegal without a valid license and insurance. Individuals face prosecution. The system as it stands relies heavily on drivers adhering to renewal rules and being honest about any medical changes that could affect safe driving. Now, ministers are looking at strengthening those requirements. One of the proposals being discussed is compulsory eyesight testing for drivers aged 70 and over. Should someone fail those checks, they could be barred from driving altogether. In essence, this would add an additional hurdle above and beyond the standard license renewal procedure. Supporters argue that regular eye exams are crucial for road safety no matter how old the driver is. According to motoring expert Ridian Jones of Confused.com, vision can deteriorate subtly over time, and drivers may not even notice the changes. Reduced ability to read road signs, slower responses to hazards, and misjudged distances are risks that can increase with age. Introducing mandatory vision tests for older drivers would act as a built-in safety net, encouraging regular eye care and helping identify problems before they lead to accidents. Drivers themselves are also encouraged to monitor any changes to their eyesight and medical health and to report thresholds that might affect their license status. Under current rules, failing to notify the DVLA about certain medical conditions can carry a fine up to £1,000. In more serious cases, especially if someone causes an accident, prosecution is a risk. Organisations such as Age UK highlight that these changes would intensify pressure on elderly drivers. They stress that if a license expires and isn't renewed, the person is automatically disallowed from driving, something that might catch vulnerable drivers off guard. Critics of the proposals argue that the current system already places a burden on older drivers and relies heavily on self-reporting. They worry that stricter regulations could undermine autonomy and disproportionately affect elderly people who may still be fully capable of driving safely. The debate is not uniquely British. Across Europe, several countries have introduced more rigorous testing regimes for older drivers. In the Netherlands, Italy, and Portugal, for example, those aged 70 and above are required to undergo medical examinations in order to renew their license. France is even considering a law that would demand mandatory medical checkups every 5 years for people over 70. In that scheme, a general practitioner or specialist would assess cognitive and physical fitness before issuing a certificate to confirm eligibility to drive. These European precedents act as both warning and guide. On one hand, they illustrate the feasibility of introducing additional safeguards. On the other, they highlight concerns about fairness, accessibility, and cost. In some cases, older drivers find the process burdensome or expensive, or fear that health conditions beyond their control will force them off the roads prematurely. Finding the right balance is the challenge. Authorities and campaigners want to ensure roads are safe for everyone: drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and other road users, without unfairly restricting those who are still competent behind the wheel. The question is whether stricter testing becomes protection or an overreach. One possibility under discussion: rather than blanket measures, a tiered system could be introduced. Older drivers might be screened at specific intervals, say every 3 or 5 years, or required to retake tests only if certain conditions are flagged, medical complaints, accidents, or noticeable declines. That approach might combine safety oversight with flexibility. If introduced, mandatory eyesight testing would likely catch issues early: cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, or other conditions that degrade vision. With early detection, corrective treatment or management measures could be applied, allowing many drivers to continue safely. It would also encourage all drivers to prioritize eye health more broadly, not just those in older age groups. Critics continue to caution against unintended consequences. Some fear that stricter rules may isolate older people who rely on driving for shopping, social visits, or health appointments, especially in rural areas with poor public transport. They warn that being forced off the road could undermine quality of life, lead to greater dependency on others, or even contribute to social isolation. There are also administrative and logistical concerns. The DVLA would need to handle greater workloads, coordinate with opticians and medical professionals, and manage appeals from drivers who fail checks. There would need to be a system for retesting or appeals and clear criteria for passing or failing. Costs would need allocation, who pays for tests, and whether exemptions or support should be available for those on limited means. Public reaction is likely to be mixed. Some will welcome reforms aimed at reducing accidents involving elderly drivers. Others may interpret them as ageist or unfair constraints on freedom. The government will have to navigate those sensitivities carefully, both in designing the rules and communicating them. One key message campaigners emphasize: these changes should not be seen as driving police targeting older citizens, but as safety measures that apply neutrally and responsibly to all drivers at risk. The narrative must avoid stigmatizing older people as unsafe by default. Rather, the emphasis should be on preserving dignity, independence, and safety in tandem. For UK audiences, it's helpful to consider the scale. The proportion of drivers aged 70 and over is growing, as lifespans lengthen and retirement ages adapt. As the population ages, the number of elderly drivers on the road increases. In future decades, more senior citizens will drive for longer, and regulators must keep pace, rather than rely on legacy systems designed for smaller aging populations. Any reform would likely roll out gradually. A pilot period might test eyesight screenings in specific regions before national adoption. There might also be grandfathering clauses or delay periods to allow older drivers time to prepare. Crucially, the criteria how severe a vision impairment must be to bar driving would need scientific backing and clear thresholds. One practical scenario: imagine a driver aged 72 visits their optician for a routine check and discovers their vision has declined somewhat. Under new rules, that person would be flagged, required to take the official test, and either pass and continue or fail and lose driving privileges, or possibly be restricted to certain conditions, such as daylight driving only. Meanwhile, others with healthy vision would continue unaffected. As debates intensify, voices from both sides will be crucial. Road safety experts will offer data and projections of accidents avoided, civil liberties groups will protect the rights of the elderly. Ultimately, the decision will rest with government and Parliament. In the meantime, drivers approaching or past age 70 should be especially vigilant. They should attend eye tests regularly and report any health changes promptly to the DVLA. Even if fresh legal mandates don't arrive immediately, the principle of self-monitoring remains critical. Any change must be transparent, fair, and rooted in evidence. If the government proceeds, it should clearly communicate criteria, provide support for those affected, and ensure that appeals are straightforward. The risk of alienating older drivers or provoking legal challenges will rise if rules seem arbitrary or discriminatory. In summary, the UK may be on the verge of introducing mandatory eyesight testing or even further assessments for drivers once they cross a certain age threshold, most likely beginning at 70. While the goal is to enhance road safety, the proposal raises questions of equity, autonomy, and logistics. The challenge is striking the right balance, protecting all road users while allowing competent older drivers to retain their independence. As momentum builds, both supporters and critics will watch closely, and the road ahead may be as complex as the regulations themselves.